Today we're going to talk about the final collaboration process in directing, and that is the collaboration process with an actor. I talk about collaboration with actors because in the professional theater, a director is really collaborating with a group of fellow artists. Actors are not there just to simply bring forth what the director's vision is, but to also contribute towards that vision with different ideas concerning their character, how certain moments are to be played, what's going on overall with the arc of the character, and they may even have some input on some design tech elements that can really support the director's theme getting across more clearly to the audience. Given that, there are some things that I want to encourage all directors to do when collaborating with actors. The first is to set a clear rehearsal goal. There's nothing more frustrating for an actor than going to a rehearsal and you're not really sure what's going to be rehearsed or what the expectation is. A rehearsal goal is simply letting the company know what you'll be working on that night and what you'll be focusing in on as director. For example, a rehearsal goal might be tonight we're just going to block the show. Or tonight we're going to really work through the characters. We're going to start and stop and really take a look at moments of transition for the characters emotionally. Another rehearsal goal might be we're going to go through tech tonight. It's not about costumes. It's not about anything other than making sure that the light and sound cues are working well with you. So please make sure that you are doing the same timing that we've done in rehearsals so that we can do that. A rehearsal goal needs to be set at the beginning of every single rehearsal, every time a new actor comes in, so that everybody knows, for example, what you'll be focusing in on. It's difficult for an actor who has to learn lines, who has to worry about blocking, who has to worry about affecting the other person, who has to worry about props, who has to worry about getting out of the way of scenery moving, to focus in on all those things at the same time. So letting them know what you're going to be focusing in on gives them the opportunity to focus in on that same thing as well. And that's really what we're talking about here. Next, you want to have open body language with actors. You are there to help coach the actors. You are not there to evaluate or to judge the actor. A body language that has crossed arms, crossed legs, that you're sitting very far back or behind a table and you seem to be leaning back in your seat feels very judgmental. It feels very confrontational. You're there to support the actor's work and to provide an environment in which they can give you their best work. Actors will always give you their best work if they feel comfortable and they feel like you're there to look out for them. Then they will feel free enough to take advantage of that and jump to whatever heights you want. But if they feel like you're judging them or evaluating them, they're suddenly going to get very timid because they're going to feel like there's a right answer and a wrong answer to things. And that's what you want to avoid. In general, don't cross your legs, don't cross your arms, don't lean back in your chair. If anything, open up your body language and lean forward on your chair to show the actors that you're really invested in what they're doing. Next, you want to watch the actor, not the text. You need to see what the audience sees. For the first week or two of rehearsal, I may sit very close to the actors, maybe even a couple inches away from the stage, or sit in the front row of the house, and I'll be there with my script on a music stand and I'll follow along. The reason why I want to be that close to the actors is especially in the first 2 weeks of rehearsal where they have the least amount of knowledge of their characters and the least amount of knowledge in their blocking. They're going to be starting and stopping a lot and asking you a whole series of questions. When you're close like that, they can see you and they feel like you're there to help them and support them. It's also important for you to have the text close by for the first couple weeks of rehearsal because you will be starting and stopping a lot. And when you stop, you usually want to give the actor some piece of direction or some new piece of information. And then you'll want to give them a place to go back to in the text, usually at the start of a beat. So you'll want your text handy to do that. Around week 1.5, 2 weeks into the rehearsal process, you're going to really want to close that text. You'll want to have it close by in case you need to reference it. But at this point in time, the actors are learning their lines. They're getting more comfortable. The stage managers are there to give them lines if they need it. This is the time for you to really watch the actors, not the text. You need to see what the audience is seeing, and you need to see if the storytelling through the blocking and through the visual choices that you're making is really being clearly communicated to your audience. By the last week of rehearsal, usually the week right before tech, including tech, I will sit very far back so that the actors can't even see me, usually in the worst seats in the house or in very far back row. I do this for a couple different reasons. Number one, because every seat in your house could potentially sell. So it's important for you as a director to be able to see what every single audience member may see. But also by that point in time, I want the actors to feel more ownership of the show. I want them to feel more like these characters are their choices and that they shouldn't really need me that much. It's kind of like growing up. A baby needs you all the time. A kid in their tween years and early teen years needs you a lot, but not as much as a baby. And then by the time the child turns 18, 19, 20, it's time to let them go and make their own choices, even if you disagree. And as a director, that's sort of the feeling you want to create with the cast, that you're there for them and very close to them and giving them whatever help they need in the first couple weeks. That then you're starting to give them more responsibility and you're starting to stand back. And by the end of the process, that you're really endowing them with the power to succeed and make choices on their own. You should specify moments when you work with actors. You'll be starting and stopping the action a lot. And the worst thing you can do is to say, okay, now let's go back to the scene every time you stop the action of the show. You really want to just start to look at moments in the scene. Say, this moment is not working. This is a great moment, and this is why it's a great moment. Let's go ahead and begin back at this specific moment. Don't think that the beginnings of scenes, or worse, the beginnings of acts, are always the natural starting point for your journey. Sometimes starting in the middle of the scene, starting at a certain moment that really needs the most attention, is the best way to use your rehearsal time. This is the biggest note I can give you. If I were you, and I knew that I was going to have a quiz on this lecture, I might indeed circle, highlight, asterisk this. Directing with verbs is the most important thing you can do as a director for American actors because most American actors were trained using verbs as their actions. So they've learned how to do a beat analysis with objectives. They've learned that Stanislavski technique. And what they know is that they have to create an objective that has the word to, and then an actable verb, and then another person. So directing with verbs is kind of like learning to speak to them in their own native language. You can get results faster. You can communicate more specifically. You can really cut through the chase if you direct with verbs. If you direct with adjectives or moods, if you say things like, be more sad here, um, or I think that she's angrier at this moment. The actor can show you being sadder and they can show you being more angry, but it may not feel very active. In point of fact, it'll sound right, but it won't feel dynamic, and that's because there's no real verb pushing through that. So what you really want to do is direct with verbs. You want to be able to say, shake her up at this moment, get in her face, push her around. Those things will create the kind of dynamic acting that American acting values and that your audience will value. Next, you want to break down the text and talk in terms of beats. We've talked about this before when we talked about specifying moments a few moments ago, but you really don't want to give people this huge chunk before you stop them and give them direction. If they are going along with a 2-minute scene and the first 15 seconds there's something that you want to give a note to, stop them at that moment. Give them that note. Have them run that moment again. It's much easier for an actor to think of rehearsal process as a layering process, meaning that you're not going to do everything on one rehearsal. But one rehearsal, you're just going to worry about blocking, and then you're going to worry about refining, and then you're going to worry about physical choices and vocal choices. And every day you're going to add something new for them to focus in on. If you try to do too much, or you try to have them go through an entire scene, and then you give them a note from 3 pages back, they may not even remember what that note means because they may not remember that moment. Now, certainly when you're doing runs of the acts or runs of the show as you get closer to opening, you will take notes and you will give them information for moments that they played earlier the evening. But especially for the work-throughs and especially for the first couple weeks of rehearsals, don't let them go too far if you've got something to say. feel free to stop them. It's the only reason why you're in the room. It's going to feel intrusive at first. You're going to feel like, oh, they're really feeling this moment. I don't want to give them this note because I feel like I'm going to ruin their moment. Ruin their moment. It's okay. You are there for that express purpose to give insight and input and respond the way that an audience member might and to make what they're doing better. So don't feel guilty for ever interrupting an actor. It's important for you to pace out your rehearsal with actors. Again, you don't need to do everything within the first day. So really look at when they need to really be off book. Look at when blocking really needs to be solidified. Look at when you're going to be refining the characters and making specific choices that can't get changed. Look at giving yourself a couple days that are TBA days, where in case an actor gets sick earlier in the process, or in case you're just simply behind on some moments, you've given yourself the opportunity to go back and do some more exploration. So really look at not really pushing through every single idea you have about how the role should be played in the first rehearsal, but instead gradually add more and more. It's kind of like sketching a picture, and then you go ahead and go over that sketch with more solid lines, and then you paint it. It's a process that's making it fully realized. Think of your rehearsals like that as well. It is always better to block actors sooner in the rehearsal process than later. A lot of actors connect memory with what their body is doing. So if I know that when I sit down, I'm saying this line, it's much easier for me to connect those two things. It's very, very difficult for actors to just memorize a script not having blocked the show. It can happen, but it's incredibly difficult for a lot of actors. Whereas immediately after blocking, a lot of actors can get off book quite quickly because they sort of picture the show in their head and they know what their next moment is, and they can attach lines to actions of what their body's doing. They're really connecting their body and their mind, and that's what's helping their memory. Given that, the sooner you can block the show, the better. Even if you're organic blocking, start organic blocking really early in the process. The more actors know what they're physically doing on stage, the more likely they are to remember what their lines are. Always give a why, not just what. This is the second most important thing I can possibly teach you when collaborating with actors. Again, I might highlight, circle, or asterisk this one in my notes. When you give an actor a note, like go ahead and cry here, don't just give the what, but explain why. Why should they be crying here? What's underneath that? It's helping the actors understand what the reason for the choice is, and therefore they can say, how can I make that better? What can I do with it that's different? How might I be able to take that moment with that reasoning and do something even more dynamic? If they don't understand why they're doing something, they can do it, but they won't really have a context for ever making it better. They'll just do it the exact same way. So don't just give them what you want, but why. Especially in blocking, when you say go ahead and cross stage left, give them the why. Because you want to get away from her, because you just can't stand to be around her at this moment, because you need to clear your head. That's helping an actor really analyze and understand the moment-to-moment life of the character. If I just say cross stage left, the actor can do that, but without understanding why, we may spend a lot of time later in the rehearsal process having to go through why, or the actor will just do it and it will seem hollow and weird, and I'll say, I don't know why you're going stage left at that moment, and they'll simply say, because you told me to. So always give whys. The why is much more important than the what. You can direct an actor just giving whys. Find a way to feel freer. Find a way to get away from him without having to just give what's, cross away. Finally, you really want to show empathy for your actors. Acting is difficult. There's a lot of stress and tension. They are comparing themselves to other actors on stage. They are trying to remember their lines. They're trying to remember their blocking. They're trying to remember the emotional transitions. They're trying to make big choices that will read to the back row. They're worried about what's going on vocally. They're worried about what's going on physically. They're thinking ahead at what their costume is and how that's going to affect how they sit down or what they do. Given all of that, there's a terrific amount of information that is flooding their way all the time. If you see an actor getting stressed out, address it. Take a moment. Take a break. Find a way to allow that actor to sort of center themselves. Actors work best when they are most comfortable. They are most creative and will work hardest when they are most comfortable. Actors are most comfortable when they're in an environment in which there's a sense of empathy. If an actor is sick, even though it's going to ruin your rehearsal schedule, it might be more empathetic to say, I can see that you're just really fighting this flu. Why don't you go home tonight, get some rest, have some chicken soup. We'll figure out what else we can do without you. It may ruin your rehearsal schedule. It may be incredibly frustrating for the other actors. But in another sense, it's allowing that actor to do what they need to do to be better for you. And it also allows people to know that you do have a heart, that you're not simply a taskmaster, but in point of fact, you're in this process with them. And the success is dependent on every member of the group, not just one director bullying or pushing their opinions. Now, there are some things you should avoid when working with actors. The first is asking rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question is one in which the answer is sort of already implied, or the answer is actually part of the question. A common rhetorical question in directing is, yeah, but wouldn't she be upset at that moment? Wouldn't she want to go over and hit him? Basically, that's not really a question. What you're really saying is, be mad at him. Go hit him. But you're phrasing it as a question because you feel like it's more collaborative that way. But really, it's not collaborative. The actor's not going to say, no, that's not really what the moment is. The actor will simply figure out that what you're doing is telling them what to do, and they'll do that. Go ahead and cut through those rhetorical questions. Just make statements. Just say, be more of this, do this here, affect him this way, get away from her, get into his face. Actors respond better to statements and direction than they do questions with which there is no answer. Be careful of leading the witness. This is where you're going to ask them a series of questions, quite often rhetorical questions, to get them to process a moment. So leading the witness might be like this. But didn't you want to go cross there? And didn't you want to, once you crossed over, didn't you want to go ahead and sit down in the chair? And then since you were there in the chair, didn't you want to go ahead and pick up that drink? And then if you're there and getting the drink, then didn't you want to go ahead and throw the drink in his face? I mean, that's leading the witness. You're basically giving them a whole series of directions through kind of questions, but kind of statements. Instead, just say, cross over there, grab the drink, throw it in his face. This is why I want you to do that. Once you do that, an actor is great with that. It still feels collaborative. You're there to share your ideas, and you're there to give them a direction. Don't be shy. Don't think that giving direction is somehow encroaching upon their creativity or is somehow squashing their vision of what's going on at the moment. A lot of times, actors will come to you with ideas, and they'll show you their ideas on stage. And your job is to evaluate those and help make them stronger, or to say that's really just not part of what we're trying to do here with this production. Another thing that you want to try to avoid when working with actors is overusing the word good. Usually people do this when what they really mean is hold. It's hard for directors, especially early career directors, to figure out how to stop the action of a play. You don't really want to say stop, because when people hear stop, they immediately drop everything that they're doing. What you want to try to do is find a way to create a moment, kind of like a pause button, so that the actors are still in character, they're still sort of in the moment, but they also understand that they have to put their actor ears back on and can listen and take direction and then continue on where they left off. What you don't want are words like halt, stop, no. These types of words make actors completely drop character, completely drop the moment, and not really be able to connect back to it very quickly. Instead, what a lot of directors do is they say good. So they'll interrupt with good. Good. That was good. That was good, you guys. But everything about that was exactly not what we want to do. So really, you're not really using good like you mean good. You're just using good as a filler or as a way to say stop. And you're doing that because you feel like it's very positive to the actors and they want to hear that they're doing good. Instead, simply say hold. Let's hold for a moment. Hold right there for a moment. Give them the direction. Then give them a place to pick it back up from, and then let them go. Use good when you mean something is good. Don't use good just to interrupt the action, but use good because they did something good or they did something great. Don't go, great, great, great. You guys, that was really, really great. Here's 4 pages of notes. Well, if there's 4 pages of notes, it wasn't really great or it wasn't really good. It may have been good overall, but be careful about overusing the word good or any sort of positive thing. You'll feel like it's nice, and in point of fact, it is nice, and actors like to hear it, but it loses its impact if it's overused. Watch out for comparing actors to other actors. You never want to tell an actor, do it like he did, or you see how he's doing that and it's very over the top, that's what I want from you. When you compare actors, what usually happens is there's a competitiveness that surfaces, and actors now start to feel like they are in competition with each other rather than part of one ensemble. The only time you would want to compare actors if it is something specifically technical, like an accent or a dance step. You can say, listen to the way he does his R's and do it like that. That's fine. That's a technical note. But what you want to do is avoid saying, she does this and it's so sad. Do it like her. Because then the other actor is saying, well, it's not about me and it's not about my character. It's just about me parroting or imitating somebody else. And that's going to set up a competitiveness. So never compare actors. Avoid giving line readings. Young actors especially believe that directors know exactly what they want, and for some reason they're just not telling the actors. They believe that directors know exactly what the blocking should be, exactly how every line should be read, and exactly how every single moment should be played, and that is not true. An actor needs to come in with that stuff. That's the hardest thing for young actors to understand, that they are contributors to the process, not just there to do what the director says. When you give an actor a line reading, it sort of feels like it can be read no other way, that what you're giving them is the right answer. And we all know with all art, there is no one right answer. There are many right answers. Some are just stronger or better or more meaningful right answers. When you give an actor a line reading, it feels very much like what you're telling them is, I don't want you to ever say it any other way but this. And that's not always great for an actor. Often, as the role continues to progress, and as the actor adds more to the character, if they've been given a line reading, it can really jar them out of that moment because they'll think, oh, this is the way I have to say that one line. The only time to give a line reading is if you want an actor to pronunciate something differently. During that, it's more of a technical thing. So you're really telling them pronunciation that they can imitate because it is correct. But aside from pronunciation, nothing else in theater is correct. Things are just better than others. So avoid giving line readings for that very reason. Finally, be careful about running out of insights, information, exploration. Be careful about running out of things to rehearse. Sometimes the actors will have achieved exactly what you want them to achieve, and you'll notice, oh, we still got 2 more hours of rehearsal. Or worse, we still have 2 more weeks of rehearsal. What should I do? And a lot of times in those cases, you think, well, then I guess we're done and just go home. But a play is never done. Even when a play is open, an actor should always be looking for how to refine their performance, how to make it even better, how to make a certain moment or a certain scene even more dynamic and interesting. Instead, if you've run out of things to say for the actors, start to explore other ideas. Just because the actors are doing what you have in your head or how you hear the lines doesn't mean that ultimately that's the very best way. It just means that they've met the level that's in your head. But maybe there's a more interesting way to do that. Maybe there's a more dynamic way to do that. The only way to really know is to explore and play. So when you feel like you've run out of information, that's the perfect time for you to tell the actors, now let's do the scene, and don't worry about what we've blocked. Let's just feel it out and see where things might change. Or don't worry about what we said about the characters. Instead, really try to play around with other moments. See if there's anything else in there that we might be able to come up with and explore and refine that we might be able to add to what we're already doing. Actors love exploration. They love feeling like the work is never done. And they love feeling like that you are there in the room and anything is possible. The basic idea behind collaboration, whether it be with actors or with designers, is that two ideas will lead you to a brilliant third idea. But one idea just leads you back to that one idea. So as a director, you collaborate with actors, so you have two people coming up with ideas in hopes that what you come up with is a brilliant third idea that neither one of you really knew. And it wasn't until you started working together and collaborating that this third idea even came up. If an actor feels like you're telling them everything that they need to do, and you feel like you're the only person in the room giving ideas, then all they can do is just do that one idea. And once they do that, you're going to feel like there's nothing more for us to say or nothing more for us to do. Always encourage your actors to come in with new choices. Give them the parameters for those new choices. Tell them, don't come in tomorrow with something 180 degrees different than what we've been working on, but find 2 or 3 things that you're going to do differently tomorrow than what you did tonight. And we'll see if those are better or not as good, and I will respond to that as a director. And if I feel like it's good or more interesting, I'll give you that feedback, and I'll give you a direction to go in to make it better. And if it's not right, I'll explain why it's not going to really work, why it's not so effective, and then I'll give you a different direction to go in. But collaboration with actors should really feel like a give and take. It should really feel like the actors are free enough to make some choices, to show you what they've been working on, and for them to be able to listen to your ideas and incorporate your ideas and then build upon your ideas. The only way that they're going to feel comfortable doing that is if you create an environment that doesn't feel judgmental, that has a clear rehearsal goal, where they see that you have open body language, that you're watching them and not have your face buried in the text, that you're giving them verbs and breaking down things into moments and beats, that there's a good layering process in the rehearsal process so that you're adding things over time, not expecting a final opening night performance on the first day of rehearsal, that you're blocking the show and showing a sense of empathy for the actors and how difficult that process is, and that you're giving them a lot of why they should be doing something and not just what, and avoiding comparing them to others, giving them line readings, asking them rhetorical questions. These are the things that will help you work with your actors. What I want you to do as you begin to work with actors on your final scene is for you to really start to put some of these things into play. If you do nothing else, set up a rehearsal goal, direct with verbs, and give whys, not just what. If those are the only 3 things you do, you will see quick and remarkable improvement in the environment in which the rehearsals are taking place, and your actors will have infinite more clarity and will really trust and listen to you. That concludes actor-director collaboration.